All right. City of Two Rivers City Council regular meeting for Monday, October 18th, 2021. Will you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. And then we'll go to roll call. And Jamie.
Jeff Dahlke.
Here.
Tracy Coach. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Darla LeClaire. Here. Is excused. Bonnie Shimulunis. Here. Adam Husky.
Here. All right, on to number 4, and that is consideration of any council member requesting to participate in this meeting via a remote location. We do have one, and that is Darla LeClaire. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. President, to allow Darla LeClaire to participate remotely.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. On to number 5, which is a public hearing, and we do have one. It is a ordinance to amend Municipal Code 2-1-2 entitled Division of a City into Wards to designate ward boundaries and polling locations. The recommended action is to motion to waive reading and adopt the ordinance. That is page 5 in your packets. This is a public hearing, so we will give 3 calls if anyone wishes to speak on this. Unless you got an intro to do there, Greg, before we go ahead and do that. Sure.
Sure. So the ordinance before you is, like you said, to divide the city into wards, which it already is. This is just changing the boundaries a little bit. We are doing it because of the census, and along with that, the county realigns their supervisory districts to have a equal or very close to equal number of people within each district. And then along with that, we have to put our wards within those boundaries. So this is doing that. And then it is also changing our number of polling locations from 4 until 2, or 4 to 2. And we are proposing keeping the polling place at St. Peter the Fisherman and then adding a new one at the Abundant Life Church.
Okay, very good. So we'll give the public a chance to weigh in on this. The microphone and podium are at my right, your left. If you choose to come up and talk on this public hearing, this is call number 1. Seeing none, we'll go to call number 2. Nobody for call 2. Our third and final call if you wish to address the council on this issue. All right, see none. We will close the public hearing, and we're looking for a motion on this. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to waive the reading, adopt the ordinance.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mark. And any discussion? Mark.
Mr. President, I think also we were informed during our review of this that as a result of these steps we're taking, we have some outdated election equipment too. And it might be pertinent to the public listening that you might say how we also are addressing this outdated equipment at this timely change.
Sure. Along with the reduction down to 2 polling locations in order to better accommodate an increased number of voters at those locations, we are bringing in updated tabulators. And then we are also bringing in an electronic poll book system, which will allow voters to sign in at any one of multiple check-in points. And then they will continue to vote the way they do now with a paper ballot and feeding it through a tabulator. But we should be able to better accommodate more people at those locations.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right. This is a we're amending an ordinance, so we're gonna do a roll call on this. Jamie?
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc. Aye. Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinas,
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Motion carries.
On to number 6, input from the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council on anything that is on this agenda or something you'd like to see on a future agenda, or any comments or concerns, please come up to the podium. My right, your left, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to address the council tonight? All right, seeing none, we're going to move down to number 7, which is council communications. Any council members have anything that they'd like to share that they've been communicated with over the last 2 weeks? Mark?
Mr. President, I want to represent a citizen who called me, who is concerned about bikes and riders of bicycles who are ignoring pedestrians on sidewalks, and he and other people he's walked with feel threatened by these oncoming bicycles. Now, we do have an ordinance on that, and we, I think, previously pled many times to fellow citizens that please let's be considerate and follow the rules. But we do have regulations and laws that prohibit riding bicycles, particularly to people who may be walking on the bicycle and are threatened on it. You can ride bikes on the sidewalks, on the bridges only, but that's the only designated place you can ride a bicycle on. And Chief, do you want to come forward if you would? Is there anything you want to add to that commentary to clarify that?
Not too much to add. I think you did a good job by stating that there are regulations regarding operating bicycles on sidewalks. The ordinance states that unless you're learning how to ride a bike or you're a small child riding a bicycle, you're not supposed to be riding on the sidewalk. You should be in the street going with traffic. And you do have to follow all the traffic laws and regulations. The exception, the blanket exception regarding operating on sidewalks is in the downtown area. So between 12th Street and 22nd Street, Adams and Jefferson, there are not to be any bicycles on the sidewalk. And so I know that this has been a kind of a reoccurring issue. I have given instructions, and I know it went out to the officers to do extra patrol in the downtown area to try and be mindful of that. I'm not trying to make any excuses. I don't believe in doing that. It is difficult at times because it's not happening all the time and everywhere. So, an officer can sit for an hour in one area and not see a thing at all, and could be 3 blocks away and it happening 3 blocks around the corner. So they are trying to give some extra patrol. At the last council meeting, we talked about a similar issue. Actually, it was more about bicycles and scooters and things like that operating on the roadway. And we talked about putting a notice out on Facebook to people as a reminder. We did that. I believe that was early last week or at the end of the week before. So we're trying to do our best to get the information out there and let people know that, what they're supposed to do, what their responsibilities, what the restrictions are. And like I said, I have given it to the officers to try and be a little bit more diligent at enforcing that. I will also let you know, because I did mention it last time, regarding an ordinance to address the e-bikes and motorized bicycles. We hope to have a draft of that to you by the second council meeting, the second regular council meeting in November, which I think is either the 15th or the 16th. So just by way of information. There is a fine for most bike violations. It is a pretty low fine. It's $5. There's no cost to it. The reason for that, I would say, and it's been like that for many years, is because most of the people that violate bicycle regulations were kids and didn't want to be overly strict, I guess, or overly expensive for a child to violate an operating rule. But in this particular case, it sounds like our problem is more adults than it is kids, and they should know better.
I might suggest when we bring that back, we'll at least offer up the idea that even for kids, a lot of kids seem to have access to money, maybe something like a $20 violation that
Well, and
wouldn't be out of line.
And we can talk with the city attorney about this, but there are things maybe we could do, like certain ages, up to a certain age is one fine amount, and maybe over another age is a different fine amount. So there are things that we can do.
Yeah, if it's a blanket $5, that just would chime in. That might
Yeah.
warrant some attention
Yeah.
too.
Thank you for your efforts on that.
Sure.
I know we have a tire limit on that for size.
Yep.
But I mean, if kids are running to school, wouldn't you feel more comfortable having the kids on the sidewalks rather than, within certain timeframes? Especially, anybody under 14
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I think under certain circumstances, I would agree with you. The ordinance is kind of what it is at this point, and we are, fairly reasonable in our enforcement efforts when it comes to things like that. And I would say that same thing when it comes to going the wrong way sometimes on the streets. Sometimes under certain circumstances, you can understand the thought behind it. And again, trying to be reasonable and trying to keep, safety overall in mind. But I'm not disagreeing. I think there are circumstances where that makes some sense. Unfortunately, that's not the way our ordinance is written right now.
And would it pay to look into that ordinance a little bit and maybe do like an hour before school and an hour after school and, give some leeway in there?
It's an interesting thought, and we could take a lot of things into consideration and kind of bounce things around. It can get a little problematic once you start making exceptions for things. It's a lot easier, especially for officers and citizens, when things are kind of consistent and clear and there aren't a lot of exceptions. That certainly isn't the case throughout all the regulations in the city, but especially the beach. But like I said, we can take a look at it, and it's not going to just be a one-shot thing where we, bring it to you and you have to decide at night. And, we'll probably have it at a work session and we can have further discussion on it. So
If I could add for purposes, Jeff, that's a good comment. I think maybe we could look at that. But the complaint specifically, Jeff, really didn't focus on the people or kids that going to school.
Yeah.
It was parts of downtown area, immediate area, around their area, and the beach itself. It wasn't kids
Right.
going to school. So,
and that's a good point, is that at least at this point, I even hate to say this because somebody will tell me that that's not the case, but we really haven't gotten any complaints about children or anything like that. It's really been kind of more of the downtown area. And that's a cyclical thing. It kind of comes about every couple of years where there's a problem and we have to kind of hit it kind of hard, and then it goes away for a while. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Any other council communications, council members?
I did have one woman, she contacted me about the city Facebook page, and she kind of made a good point. She said, if you go through and look at how many comments there are, usually the numbers don't match up. There'll be like, say there's 100 comments. Well, when you go through and count all your comments, there's a good 20% that are always missing. She wants to know if they're being deleted.
I would highly doubt we're deleting them, but that would be a better question for probably IT.
Right.
To my knowledge, and Rick.
Or whoever takes care of
Rick
it.
can chime in on this. The only time I'm aware we have ever deleted any posts or if they had profanity in them. And to tell you the truth, Jeff, I've never sat and counted them all. So
Yeah, I
I don't know
never
if
do
it's
either,
a
but
conspiracy
obviously somebody
theory
did.
or a technical glitch or just what. But Rick, as far as deletions from the website, it'd have to be someone that has administrative rights. How that works in terms of the count.
Right. I'm just passing along the question.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, I had one. It was in the regards to the bicycles as well. I was contacted on that as well. But then I also just wanted to say congratulations to our Parks and Rec Director, Terry, for the WPRA Aquatics Section 2 Region Representative in 2022. That will be her post. Her department is also hosting the Section 2 meeting in December right here in Two Rivers, which will bring a lot of people to the area in the recreation business. So A great job by Terry on that. That's all I had. So we will move on to number 8, council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Does anyone have anything they need to report or want to report? Mark?
Mr. President, again, I have 2 upcoming meetings I'd like to announce to the public. We have a room text meeting on Thursday, coming up Thursday at 10 o'clock. And a bigger meeting is the Financial Personnel and Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And we're grinding through the budgetary process for interested. Public's welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Okay, Darla, anything?
No,
Okay, don't want to forget you there on the phone.
thank you.
Moving on to number 9, that is the city manager's report, and Greg.
Thank you. For my report tonight, just wanted to share a few things. There was a gathering at the Wisconsin Maritime Museum on Saturday, October 9, to commemorate the now official status of the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast National Marine Sanctuary. A group shown there, which includes representatives of each of the 4, no, I beg your pardon, Port Washington wasn't there, but 3 out of the 4 cities, various state agencies, coastal management, the State Historical Society, also, of course, Governor Evers and Senator Baldwin there at the center of the photo. The documents the various people are holding are proclamations of noting the creation of the National Marine Sanctuary that were provided by Governor Evers' office. We'll have that on display here at City Hall. In addition to a roundtable discussion on coastal resiliency issues, which was interesting. There was a boat tour with boats provided by Manitowoc Marina out to the site of the wreck of the Francis Hinton. That was pretty much the closest wreck site to the Maritime Museum. I tried to get them to the Christmas tree ship, but the Hinton was a lot closer. The Hinton was a wood-hulled, steam-powered barge that went down off Manitowoc in 1909, right off the area we know as west of the Lake Gardens now. One little factoid I learned on that from Tamara Thompson from the State Historical Society, who is one of their really their head marine archaeologists. She has dived most of the wrecks off of Two Rivers and Raleigh Point. Actually, near the Hinton off Manitowoc, there are also the hulls of 3 Goodrich lines steamships that were scuttled there. That's how we got rid of old boats in the old days. Set them on fire, burned them down to the water line, or sunk them. So they're largely covered with sand, but they're in the same area where the Hinton ran aground out there. So there's a little bit of shipwreck trivia.
Are they visible, Greg, from the boat?
One of them is. The other 2, from what I understand, are completely covered with sand. And, you know, even though the Francis Hinton is in 14 feet of water, and that Saturday was a pretty nice summer-like day, nobody was able to see the wreck from above that day. As I understand it, you need pretty much, straight down sunlight and very, very clear water conditions. But fascinating stuff. I can tell you that the representative there from the Fund for Lake Michigan, which has a new grant funding initiative dealing with coastal resiliency, knows Two Rivers, was very much interested in knowing the status of the former Hamilton property across the way here, the Thermo Fisher site. It's good to hear that interest from funding agencies. I did get a chance to at least get a word in with Senator Baldwin about the good work her staff continues to do, pursuing funding for a harbor study related to our surge and shoaling problem. We still haven't seen federal funding for that design deficiency study that we want to see as the first step, or the next step toward getting funding. So it was productive time, and there are plans to do an event in the spring. Hopefully we're totally out from under the COVID, the COVID business, because there are still people that will not come out from Madison and DC to these meetings, that we could do something that would be open to the general public. I should mention too, I don't know if he's in the photo there. Oh, yeah, back center, who is the guy that you see right between the governor and Senator Baldwin is Rick Spinrad. Rick is the director of NOAA, the presidentially appointed head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So that was pretty cool to have him here in the communities learning more about the sanctuary. He heads up a 12,000 employee federal agency that includes the National Weather Service and of course the marine sanctuaries and other responsibilities. So very impressive. Navy veteran, veteran of civilian service within NOAA, and now the head of that agency. Mark.
Rick, if I may ask one more question, have they determined, will there be a central visitor center or?
That is still
what's the-
being assessed. Russ Green, who's of course the director for the Shipwreck Coast Sanctuary, indicated they're still evaluating how to best serve visitors, that a model like exists over in Alpena. And as we all know, there ain't much around Alpena, Michigan, which is the center city for the Thunder Bay Sanctuary over on Lake Huron. That may not be the model for here, where you've got a long linear sanctuary where you have 4 principal communities. He also did say that the next step, or a major next step in the process is, I believe he termed it a resource inventory, taking into account what existing facilities are there in the area that could play a role in the sanctuary. So if there are pieces of land, if there are buildings, each community will be contacted on that, and that would be, no pun intended, our chance to get our oar in the water on that. I even questioned, we love the Coast Guard and we'd love to have our Coast Guard station back full-time year-round, given that it's seasonalized and has a lot less staff than historically it had. Could it have a role? Still being used by the Coast Guard, I'd emphasize, but could it have a role in NOAA's mission here? Because there's not a much more beautiful facility right on the lake than what we have at the U.S. Coast Guard Station.
Great
Tours.
idea.
Yeah, as well as some pretty significant vacant property that the city either does control or may soon, like we talked about with the Hamilton site. So I guess I would say stay tuned on that. The communities have worked very well together through the whole application process. I expect, even though we all mean well, we might see elbows get just a little bit sharper when it comes to trying to get NOAA facilities on the ground here within the sanctuary. Yeah. Other questions on that? Just a progress report. We have sold 3 lots so far in 2021 up at the Sandy Bay subdivision. I think there were 5 lot sales last year. Over the weekend, we did get an offer in from Amy Townsend, our listing realtor, party proposing 2 lots to be combined as a single home site, which is permissible under the covenants. And we're in the process of responding on that offer. So got quite a few lots sold up there. Let's just hope that the cost of construction and the availability of materials become such that we see actual houses going up on those lots, because that's really the reason the city got into that endeavor, was tax base and population as well. But all was good. Wanted to share with the public tonight that, and I shared with the council with an email last week, that the County Finance Committee last week, Monday, and actually Bonnie Shimalunas serves on Finance Committee for the county in her position as county board member, did accept a bid submitted by the city of Two Rivers for a vacant county, well, it's not totally vacant, this crummy old building is on it, but for a largely vacant county-owned tax-acquired parcel on 20th Street. The county has held that property, I want to say, for at least 10 years. The city council had discussed in closed session on September 27th, possibly putting a bid in on the property. We didn't submit just a standard bid. Here's what the city's willing to pay. As the council had authorized in closed session, there were some conditions associated with that bid, which included, as shown here, the city getting assurance from an appropriate authorized representative of Wisconsin DNR that a liability, by way of a liability clarification opinion letter or other means satisfactory to the city, that the city on acquiring the property will be exempt from environmental investigation and cleanup responsibilities under state law, that being the so-called LGU exemption or local governmental unit exemption. And then there's the appropriate statutory citation there as prepared by our city attorney. It would also be subject to the city obtaining at city expense a phase 1 environmental assessment of the property, showing the property to be in a condition that wouldn't expose the city to investigation of or remediation of hazardous substances or environmental conditions under federal or state law. As an acquiring entity, the city would enjoy protection under the federal law by having an appropriate phase 1 study done. And DNR also recommended that as it relates to the LGU exemption. We expect a phase 1 on the property would probably cost less than $2,000. And then condition number 3, that the city would have 120 days following the county acceptance of its offer to address contingencies 1 and 2, with the closing to occur 30 days following the city's notice to the county that those contingencies have been met. Again, because it was an action or it was direction provided to staff on a matter where there were competitive or bargaining considerations, because we didn't know who else might be bidding on the property. That action was taken in closed session. It was properly documented by the city clerk. Now that the reason for the closed session is gone, because the bid was presented to the finance committee of the county, there were no other bidders. The minutes from that closed session do appear on your agenda tonight. That's why the delay, if you will, in those minutes being presented. But now that there's no reason for confidentiality as allowed under the open meetings law, those minutes are on your agenda. So we will proceed. The county finance committees, as I understand it, approved the city's offer contingent on the city and the county agreeing on a written purchase agreement satisfactory to both. And Attorney Bruce just later last week had some outreach from Peter Conrad, County Corporation Counsel. So I would hope within 2 or 3 weeks, maybe by the second meeting in November anyway, we would have a proposed purchase agreement reflecting the basic terms of the city's proposal, but along with whatever else two attorneys might think is appropriate in an agreement back to council. As council's aware, there's a local business located nearby the site that has been able to lease a parking area for campers and RVs that business services. And came to our attention that was no longer feasible with the county having decided to put the property up for bid. The city has also identified a prospective use for this industrial zoned property for storage of for storage for reprocessing with concrete from our street projects and things. Might make more sense in an industrial area near other industries versus in a big pile on the edge of Lake Michigan. Although it's where it becomes quite a feature sometimes of the year. So the city's offer at $15,000, which was below what the county had cited as an appraised value for the property, has been accepted, subject to ironing out an agreement, and then we'll proceed to close, which we're pretty confident we should be able to do, subject to meeting these contingencies. Questions? But good news, and thanks, Council, for timely direction on that. I think this it meets the city need, but it's also responsive to the needs of a local business. Our street projects are really getting close to completion. The only one that still has work underway out of 24th, 25th, and Madison is Madison Street. The west side of the street got paved today, so that must be a pretty fresh photo with the fresh concrete. Next week, Vinton plans on pouring intersections, driveways, and approaches, and this project should be wrapped up by early to mid-November with final restoration. Again, just as a reminder, those 3 street projects account for about $4.2 million in infrastructure investment this year. So all on local streets, but it's been a big year. Itchy trigger finger there. A couple of recent events, the Breakfast in the Park fundraiser out at the State Forest Police Department Canine Project, and Apple Fest brought back to downtown Two Rivers by the Manitowoc Two Rivers Lions. And I hope with some local support, we can kind of help them regrow that festival to the scale that it used to enjoy in the past. It was, I think the folks that came out for that event really appreciated seeing Apple Fest back. A good reason to come outside for an end of the season event. If we could do anything we can as a community to encourage more vendor participation, that would be good. And Chief, did you have a quick report and to thank you on the canine fundraiser breakfast? Thank you.
Yeah, actually very successful day on Saturday. A lot of people came out. I wasn't sure what to expect out in the park, but I think a lot of people actually came out to the park. It wasn't just the campers there. So a big thank you to everybody that came out. And of course, a thank you to the Optimist Club who sponsored that breakfast, and Lee Stegman who runs the food operation there. Great breakfast. I had some. It was great. And we did very, very well from a fundraiser perspective, probably our biggest and best fundraiser to date. So thank you, and a great event. We have some events coming up. Scare USA has reached out to us, and we'll be there this weekend and then again next weekend. May have an opportunity to have a little spot on one of the news stations. We'll see how that plays out. But Scare USA is going to do a couple of things. And if you didn't notice today, it's actually up a little bit. It's showing about 91, 92 there. We're actually at about 97 or so. And I hope to have some good news on that front in the next week or two. So,
T-shirts still available at the PD?
T-shirts are still available at the PD and at Lucky Paws up on 45th Street, as well as the Two Rivers Clothing Company.
Thanks, Chief. Much appreciated. We just remind people, and there's a related item on the agenda tonight for licensing, Two Rivers Main Street's Fall Wine and Beer Walk, Friday, October 29, right on the eve of the Halloween weekend. And behave yourself on the wine walk and then come back downtown with the kids or grandkids on Saturday. Main Street organizes and publicizes downtown trick or treat at the various downtown stores where merchants, businesses choose to participate. And that usually has a phenomenal turnout in the hundreds. That's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, October 30th. And then on Sunday, we have the real trick or treat on Halloween. And suggested hours, the city doesn't regulate this. We don't fine you if you come out at a different time. You just might not get as much of a welcome on somebody's porch. The suggested hours, 4:30 to 7 p.m. on Sunday, the 31st. I don't know how that fits with the Packer schedule. I haven't consulted it, but just throw the Snickers bars in the bag and get them out of there.
Noon.
So that a lot of activities coming up on Halloween weekend. We're picking up the leaves. Hooray, because the leaves have been dropping at a pretty good rate. We just remind people again, it's the usual rotation east of the East Twin River on Mondays, between the rivers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the south side or west of the West Twin on Friday. Rake your leaves into the street, and crews will come by and pick them up. If we miss you one week, like if you're, say, at the far north end of that area between the rivers, that'll be the area they try to hit first in the following week. Lisa Kean, my assistant, wanted to again share with the council. Here is for the past week, I believe. I'm sorry, last 30 days or the last 12 months, the top municipal code searches on the city website. In the last 30 days, people are thinking about winter parking. There were 9 inquiries on that. I'm not sure what a 5 and so on, nuisance ordinance. Last 12 months, not surprising, especially a lot of people have been putting up fence and doing other home improvements with COVID. The ever popular question about where do I put the fence, good side in, good side out, that sort of thing, how high. Top inquiry in the ordinance for the last 12 months on fencing. Second, noise ordinance. You hear about that once in a while as a council, certainly. Parking question, dogs, property encroachments, winter parking, storage sheds, and what have you. So we'll share these with you periodically and see if issues that are driving inquiries. And then on explore2rivers.com, the top views, and I'm sorry, I don't know what period this is for, quite a while, but upcoming events, generally Explore Two Rivers. Looking back over the year, War on the Shore was still one of the top Subjects of inquiries with 371, Kites over Lake Michigan at 358, Rogers Street Days 320, tonight's car show. That's just interesting to see what it is people are looking for or clicking on as it relates to explore2rivers.com. Meetings this week, again, the Personnel and Finance Committee for continued budget review on Wednesday, the 20th. For committee members, I know we've got a full docket for Wednesday. I am going to presume to add to your agenda the opportunity for some closed session discussion on offers that we either have now or should have in place in the next couple of days on the Paragon property. There's some detail we'd like to review as staff before those come to the full council, hopefully at the work session next Monday for consideration. So I'm not saying you have to spend 2 hours on it in closed session, but I am going to take the liberty of adding that to your agenda. We have multiple parties showing interest and in dialogue about the building. Room Tax Commission is going to meet on a weekly basis as we, for the near future anyway, as we try to figure out where things are going in light of the City of Manitowoc's unilateral decision to not engage with the Visitor Convention Bureau as the delivery vehicle for tourism services, and as Two Rivers pursues its own Plan B on tourism services. The next one is this Thursday, the 21st at 10 a.m. here in Chambers. Other than the closed session I mentioned for Personnel and Finance, those are, of course, open meetings open to the public. Next Monday's work session will include at a minimum I expect the council's final action on appointment to the council vacancy, and I want to revisit some of the design issues that were addressed in the joint meeting a couple weeks ago with the Central Park West Design Committee, notably the question about the street in front of the community house, because there's no point proceeding with design meetings until that issue is resolved and council gives a final indication of what direction we're going to go there. So that'll be included next Monday. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything for legislative?
No, well, actually, just today, if you get the league's legislative bulletin, the league gave some commentary on a set of bills that are supposed to encourage the development of workforce housing in communities. And on some of them, as our advocate for cities and villages, the League of Municipalities has offered some testimony opposing some of the provisions. One of them that comes to mind would make mandatory that every city or village that provides water and sewer services also provide in its zoning code at least one zoning district where that municipality would allow multifamily housing of at least 18 units per acre. And the concern there is although we're creatures of the state and state law typically prevails, there's something people kind of appreciate called local control, and being able at the local level to decide how you want properties zoned and what that means, and how dense in terms of units per acre, for example, you might want to allow. So there are some concerns there. The legislation is expected to pass the House or the Assembly, excuse me, and the fate is less certain in the Senate. So I may want to bring something to council next regular meeting on this so we could share our views, your views on behalf of the city with our legislators. There's also some proposed legislation that would prohibit, and again, I'm not really up on this, I'm sorry, but would prohibit city assessors from using certain documents or information sources in determining the value of the property. One that sticks in my mind are things like property appraisals, which strikes me as a little strange if you're striving for accuracy. Might have been appraisals provided for banks, but again, I thought those were generally indicative of market value. So there is some legislation proposed that, from what I'm seeing, the league has got some concerns about as to how it impacts and restricts flexibility at the local level. I'll try to have a better report on that and bring it at your next regular meeting on November 1. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yep. All right, on to number 10.
Adam?
Yes, I'm sorry, Darla Cripps, you scared me.
I'm sorry. I have that effect on people. I just wanted to just mention the passing of General Colin Powell today. And it kind of hit close to home for me. He served as chair of our National Advisory Council for our the USGLC, which is the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, on which I'm a Wisconsin delegate. And so I just wanted to just bring that up. It's a great loss, and I just hope everybody thinks about him and prayers to his family.
All right, thank you, Darla. Okay, number 10, consent agenda. Under presentation of minutes, we have 3 items, and the motion is to waive reading and adopt the minutes. Under reports, we have 5, and department reports, we have 11. And we also have a summary of verified bills for the month of September 2021 for $2,497,467.92. The motion is to receive and file. We have under C, an application and petition. Application for a temporary Class B license. It is for the Friends of the Two Rivers Snowfest for the Halloween Bash on Saturday, October 30th, 2021, from 7 to 12 at Cleveland Cycle Works, 2022 Washington Street. Also, the Two Rivers Main Street Incorporated Fall Wine and Beer Walk, which is Friday, October 29th, 2021, from 5 to 8:30, Washington Street and 16th Street. The recommended action is a motion to approve the applications and authorize issuance of the licenses. Under D, we have some recommendations from the Plan Commission meeting on October 11th, 2021. We have 3 of those. One is a conditional use permit for Ross Auto and Transmission Service, LLC at 2005 Hawthorne Avenue, submitted by Jake Ross and Ryan Ross. On 2, we have conditional use permit for Green Acres Landscaping at that same address. And we also have under 3, conditional use permit to construct a self-storage building at that same address on Hawthorne Avenue. The recommended action here is a motion to set a public hearing on each of these applications for Monday, November 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. We're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion on this?
I just have 2 questions.
Okay.
But the fire chief isn't here. I was just wondering what.
He's here.
He is?
Back row, about center. You might have mistaken him for Mr. Powell in the next seat because they kind of look alike.
I was just wondering what preventive care is, if you could give an example of that.
Sure. So for our community process that.
Better? All right. I just figured I'd speak louder. So through our community paramedicine program that Assistant Chief Dave Murak runs, some of the preventative care that we do. So we deal with a lot of mental health issues. We deal with a lot of people not necessarily taking their medications, not being able to afford their medicines, having stubbornness, if you will, where they're getting older, they're needing more assistance, they're unwilling to tell their family members that they need assistance, things like that. So we actually work really, really well with these people, trying to get them the assistance that they need and trying to help keep them in their homes longer. So that's a lot of the preventative stuff that we do. So either we refer out to different agencies like child services or things like that, if necessary, or some of the mental health resources that we have, he refers them. Otherwise, we try to help get them medicines, or TREP is another resource we use, or we're pretty much connected to a lot of people in the community. So we try to just keep people in their homes longer.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we got a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, perfect. On to the consent agenda. We will go down to number 11 under A. TID 15 is a development agreement with Slager Holdings LLC, providing for a direct grant of up to $250,000 to assist with the development of a new facility at Woodland Industrial Park. The recommended action is motion to authorize the city manager and city clerk to sign the agreement. That is page 114 in your packet. Any background on this, Greg?
Yes, Slager Holdings LLC, which is headed up by Ian Slager, originally from here in Two Rivers, and whose business is currently located here in a leased facility, has proposed construction of a 12,000 square foot facility for their company, All Energy Systems, that would go on land at the northwest corner of Highway 310 and Woodland Drive. Total investment out there we expect will be in excess of $1.3 million, that including the site purchase, the construction of the building and related site improvements around the building, and then the installation of 2 small wind energy systems to serve the business. The site and architectural plans for the development have been approved by both the Plan Commission at its October meeting, excuse me, and by the Community Development Authority, which does site plan approval for anything at our industrial park per the covenants at the park. Mr. Slager's total project, like I said, is about $1.3 million. The land purchase and the building and site improvements components a little over $1 million. He has been approved for his bank financing in the area of $780,000. The BIDC, City's Business Industrial Development Committee, has approved a $175,000 loan for the project. And this piece would be a grant from our tax incremental district number 14, the recently created new TIF district out at the Woodland Industrial Park. And this would be in an amount of up to $250,000. I would point out that under the agreement, Mr. Slager, or the company, Slager Holdings LLC, would be eligible for annual payments based on the amount of property taxes actually created and paid by his development. So the amount, actually, if you read into the agreement, it says it will be the lesser of the tax increment from that property available to the city, or the total increment available to that tax incremental district number 14. Now that might sound a little silly. Well, gosh, the amount for the total district ought to be more than just what comes out of that parcel, but not necessarily, because sometimes you see the overall value of a TIF district decline because of things that happen not on the property in question. But I guess the bottom line out of this is the assistance, which is $250,000 on a pay-as-you-go basis. The city's not borrowing the money, but the city's recognizing up front a monetary obligation of $250,000 to be paid to Mr. Slager at 4% interest per the agreement over time, but only to the extent revenue is generated off his development on the project site to pay that obligation. If there's not enough money coming out of the project site or the TIF, and we come up short at the end of 15 years, which was the term that council gave some direction on in closed session 2 weeks ago, then at the end of year 15, if there's still money owed, the city's obligations are terminated. There would be 15 payments starting in 2024, which is the first year that the property, would be on the tax rolls. Maybe that was 23. But that's essentially it. One thing I would like to correct in the agreement that's in front of you on page 116 of the packet, item D as in Denver at the top of the page. This falls under the section of obligations of Mr. Slager, and that would be to change that to provide documentation in a form acceptable to the city of expenditures for eligible costs totaling at least $1 million. The reason 500,000 got inserted there is it is the same amount as in the loan agreement where we say, at what point will the city disperse loan funds for the project? Well, in the loan agreement, it's after you have spent at least 500,000 in bank or company equity into the project. But here, it'd be more appropriate, I think, to have a number mighty close to the total project estimated budget, which is $1,037,000. Excuse me just a minute. Yeah, $1,033,000. So I would recommend that the agreement be approved with that change. We will be providing a project budget consistent with that as Exhibit C to the agreement, and Exhibit B, which cites the project site plan and elevations, would be the same plans that were approved by the Plan Commission last Monday. So with that one change, I would recommend council approval of the development agreement, and Elizabeth and I welcome any questions you might have.
Okay, first let's get a motion on the floor. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize city manager and our economic development manager to work with this individual to sign the agreement.
City clerk.
City clerk.
City clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city.
On behalf of the city.
Yep, just so we're clear.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second? Bill? Thank you. Any discussion, council? Yes, Mark.
This is an exciting addition to our community. It's in a hot industry of renewable energy and other activities. He's been a resident of Two Rivers, a business person. So I thank him for his commitment, and I'm excited to see this new development come to our city.
A lot of people have worked on this. We appreciate Mr. Slager's investment. Kudos to Elizabeth Runge, our community development director, who has worked with this prospect for a better part of a year now. Council approved laying the groundwork with creation of TID 14. The major reason for getting that TIF in place is to be able to provide incentives as allowed under the TIF law for further investment out at the park. If we're lucky enough to see not only this, but some other private investment, maybe then we'll get around to the items in the plan that relate to extending infrastructure, because that'd be a good problem to have, the need to extend utilities and roadways to develop more of our area south of 310. But this is essentially the first development agreement out of TID 14 to come to City Council. We hope to bring more in the future.
Any other council discussion? All right, see none. All in favor? Or did you say something, Darla? Sorry.
No.
Okay,
no.
okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to B, which is the city manager's recommended appointments to fundraising committee for the Central Park West 365 project. The recommended motion is to approve the appointments as recommended by the city manager. I will direct you to page 126 in your packet. And Greg, do you have anything you want to share on this one?
Well, we've talked in the past, and I've suggested, and I'm following up tonight, that while we have a citizen committee that is continues to work on design for the project, and there is some overlap recommended here, I do think we need a separate group identified as to work with staff and the council members on the committee to engage in outreach and fundraising, because the project to go forward is going to require some ambitious fundraising. And at this time, I'm recommending approval of 5 individuals. Might be back in the future to expand this group. There'd be essentially for an undetermined term, because it's really task oriented. This isn't meant to become a standing committee of the city. But those nominees are, first of all, 2 people who do overlap with the design committee. Its chair, Wendy Kozlowski Brandt. Also Kathy Peterson, who serves not just on the Central Park West Design Committee, but is a veteran member of the Advisory Recreation Board. So I think it helps us keep that link there. Councilmember Darla LeClaire, has expressed an interest in serving from City Council. She is also a board member for Two Rivers Main Street. And I think most people see this as a project that does benefit the downtown. That's what a major reason it's proposed for downtown. Also, Gina Cron, Sepia Chapel owner and Main Street board member, and Brad Bosar, who owns the local Napa Auto Parts as well as the one up in Algoma. And Brad is also a Main Street board member. Would ask the council authorize or approve these folks to serve on the fundraising committee for the Central Park West project.
Thank you. Looking for a motion before we get into discussion. Mark, are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the suggested appointments as recommended by city manager.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy. Now, any council discussion? Don't see any. I just have one question. I know you said they could serve for an undetermined amount of time. Does that fit with statute? Because I know a lot of our committees, it's a 3-year. I just want to make sure that before we go further, we're not breaking any rules, because in case it takes a long time.
It's really not a statutory board.
Okay.
That also, there's no statute that I'm aware of, which indicates in these circumstances that they're entitled to only a specific term.
Okay, so that term could be
I
infinity.
think it could be indefinite.
Okay.
They basically then serve at the pleasure of the city council and the
Okay.
city manager.
I was just making sure, because a lot of them are 3 years and no more than 3 consecutive terms. So I just wanted to make sure we were good. Anyone else? No, this is a all in favor. Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much. On to C. This is a resolution authorizing purchase of new property tax software and declaring official intent to reimburse the proceeds of the 2022 capital projects borrowing. The recommended motion here is to waive reading and adopt the resolution as recommended by the Finance Committee. Page 127 in your packet. Greg or Dave, does anyone want to speak to this?
The form of this resolution should look pretty familiar to you because it pretty much follows the format of the resolution approved 2 weeks ago, which allowed staff to proceed with ordering the new ballot tabulators and badger books for use in elections. Dave had presented the proposed purchase of software for our property tax management to the committee, the Personnel and Finance Committee, last week when we reviewed capital budgets. And the committee concurred with some of the reasoning our finance director presented. It's not that we're worried about supply chain issues with software, of course, but in this case, it's really a matter of the time to prepare for proper and hopefully smooth and seamless implementation of the new software. I'd welcome Dave to come up and speak to what all is involved, what the software does, and why the ask at this time.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'll just rattle through a couple things that I wrote down today, and if you have any questions at the end, feel free to ask. We are looking at this point, our old system is outdated, does not load well on new computers. It is lots of bugs that we're dealing with on a regular basis, where all of a sudden the balance due on one computer is not the same as the balance due that's on another computer. So we're having issues along those type of lines. The software is based on an old version of Access that is no longer supported by Microsoft. We've had a number of comments or discussions with the company about upgrading the software, and we're not really getting anywhere. Support from the company has been mediocre at best. So that about 11 months ago, as I was trying to develop the property tax bills last year, kind of got to the point of frustration where I needed to do something, and I felt I needed to start looking. And it didn't take long before I realized that Transcendent Technologies is the best bet to go with. It's used by 26 counties and 500 municipalities just in Wisconsin. So we would be moving to something that is much more is well used within the state, whereas the one we're currently now on, I couldn't tell you if they've got anybody else in Wisconsin. And they're also used by the city of Manitowoc, and probably most importantly is Manitowoc County. Manitowoc County just went with them recently. The benefits by far will be the fact that we'll be on that same platform with the county. Right now, we go through a painstaking thing where we pull files from our current system. We have to manipulate those files into a format that the county can read. And it's a process that goes from their software into Excel. We modify it, we send it to a text file, and then we can send it to the county and cross our fingers that the county's not going to have any issues with it. That will save us hours of time, Rick's time, because he does a lot of the manipulation of the data. We've also will have an outward facing web access to the records, which right now we don't have. And that will literally save us, I would say, almost 1,000 phone calls every year that we're taking that says, hi, this is so-and-so, and I need to know whether that property tax bill has been paid. They'll be able to look that up themselves. Manitowoc has that. I mean, if you go onto their webpage, you'll be able to access the properties that are in the city of Manitowoc and see what the property taxes are. Something that will greatly enhance and streamline our processes. Our system will function well on today's operating system. Like I said, it's outdated right now and it's just not operating well on new computers. We'll be able to operate more efficiently, getting more done in the same amount of time. Doing business with an industry leader with a strong ties to Wisconsin gives us a user group that will be able to exchange ideas easily. Local support, the company is out of Neenah. Local support for that comes up, I can't read my own writing here. Oh, local support for issues that come up, a support network much improved from what our current provider is giving us at this point. New software will position us better for potential integration with our current financial and assessing software packages. Both of those are very integral in the billing of the property taxes and then the collection of the money as it comes in. The package will provide further tax payment receiving options. Currently, you can pay your property taxes with credit card or with your bank account. We'll be able to enhance that even further in dealing with escrow companies and that sort of thing, while we're ACH transfers and that type of thing. The price that I'm asking for here does include training and support as well for the first year and getting us onto the package and getting up and running. There is no additional hardware needed, so it's not like we're going to buy this package and then have to go out and buy a whole bunch of computer equipment on top of it. That's all can be supported with what we have now. And in short, after all that, I'm saying in short, we're really looking for the right tool for the job for our team. And this will greatly enhance and streamline the process. So that's why we're here requesting the money now, so that we can make that, as Greg said, the nice smooth transition from our old package into this new package, so that we're ready at property tax billing time a year from now. So it's going to be a 13-month process once we get started to get it to the point where we can bill property taxes in December of, what year is it? 2022. So I respectfully request that you approve the resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Any council discussion?
And I think everybody understands this does mean that there'd be a full expectation that this specific item be approved in the budget, because we'll go ahead and contract and there will be bills. They may not flow in until next year, but they will have to be paid. So I know finance and personnel thoroughly understood that. Just wanted to make sure everyone here did.
This really sounds like it'll be something really good for staff, for county, and even for our customer service and the citizens here of Two Rivers. That will really help things move a lot smoother. So I think this is a really, really good idea. If no one else has any questions
Yeah,
or
and
wants,
Mr. President, and
sorry.
we also, as a member of the Finance Committee, we also evaluated, listened, and analyzed the cost savings too. So we're initially spending money that accomplished everything Adam says, improving the overall integrity and flexibility, use of our current program, but also saves money in terms of hours, not only immediate year, but in years to come too. So this is a good long-term favorable investment.
I just want to say I was on board with this because of you explained to us how much rework you had to do. And God, I just hate doing rework. So I think it's a good thing.
All right, this is a resolution, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Jamie?
Jeff Delkey,
Yes.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis,
Aye.
Adam Weskey,
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. On to D, recommendation from the Public Works Committee meeting of October 6, 2021 to pursue street reconstruction project 2022, 17th Street from East Park to Jefferson Street and from East Street to Pierce Street. Recommended action here is a motion to affirm the city's intent to pursue reconstruction of this street, including utilities during the 2022 construction season, maintaining two-way traffic and parking on one side of the street with no bike lanes, direct staff to proceed with project design and do preliminary outreach to abutting property owners regarding the planned project as recommended by the Public Works Committee. This is page 129 in your packet. And Greg, if you have anything or Jim have any background that you want to share.
Sure, I'll serve it up, and Jim may have some more detail, or if you have any questions. This is another one of those where frankly, we're not asking for the commitment to go and spend money other than engineering costs, which are always necessary. But as we are looking at street and utility replacement projects for next year, staff recommended, and both the Public Works and Utilities Committees actually have concurred that our priority street for reconstruction next year, and that's shown in these minutes that Adam referenced, would be rebuilding 17th Street. Again, the section from, from 17th to 17th Street from East Park to Jefferson, the one block here to the west of the bridge, and then from East Street to Pierce Street. That is about a $1.7 million project inclusive of utilities. The anticipated cost of the up top stuff, the street, of the curb, gutter, sidewalk, is about 600,000 of that roughly $1.7 million. We'll obviously need to come at, as we've presented preliminarily to the Finance Committee, with the budget for that project that would need to be borrowing, general obligation borrowing for the street component. We already, as staff, have submitted pre-applications for Clean Water Fund financing and Safe Drinking Water financing for the sewer and water components. So, but what we also want to do is begin engaging the neighborhood in dialogue. The sooner, the better on these. We were admittedly late making some pretty significant decisions last year on 24th Street. So the intent here is, without unduly binding the council, to at least get an expression that, the intent is to proceed to do 17th Street next year. By the way, there's discussion, and we'll talk about it more when we bring the full budget and capital plan to council in 2023, looking a year beyond, to at least taking a serious look at tackling Roosevelt Avenue on the south side as a major street reconstruction project as well. That one, we're optimistic we might be able to garner some grant funds as well.
Before we get into discussion, we need a motion. So do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy. Now discussion, Mark.
Could you just refresh my memory about how is the main bike trail to the area?
Good point.
Let's talk about how the bike trail would work in that section.
The consensus of both staff and the Public Works Committee is that, and we recognize that's a major access corridor of the beach for vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists. It's an old neighborhood. There are minimal setbacks. There are also a number of documented encroachments into the right-of-way, which need to be addressed, but I can say there was not an interest in doing a design that would require mandating the removal of those. but working within, the thought was working within existing constraints to maintain two-way traffic. And there was discussion of looking at making the street one-way in one direction or the other, but to maintain two-way traffic, maintain parking on one side of the street, which it only has parking on the south side of the street already, and have some minimal terraces of 4.5 feet on either side before you get to the sidewalk, which is both a safety matter and a matter of hopefully reintroducing some trees to the neighborhood. Bottom line, there's not room for dedicated bike lanes. So the thought is over the longer term, a lot of bicycles use that route now. Maybe you do signage or pavement markings like sharrows that emphasize, hey, you're sharing the roadway with bicycles. But we're not looking at it in next year's budget, but we ultimately look at a separate bike ped route that takes people down East Street, as we do have bike facilities now, down East Street along Harbor Park, onto Harbor Street, and then by some other route to be determined, which could be within the street right of way or could be outside of it on publicly owned property along the lake behind some of those houses on Harbor, that we strive to get a complete off-street bike route there. But that right now is not in the cards for next year's budget. It would be rebuilding 17th by consensus of those two, notably of Public Works, pretty much the way it is, except it'll be a new street. It'll be a new street. There's not room for bike facilities.
So if I can repeat, I think what I heard then
Yeah.
is you cross 17th Street Bridge and we'd encourage and improve the signage to have everyone turn right to go past Harbor Park and get back to the beach that way.
Right. Right now, part of that route is on street. Someday it'd be great if it was all off street. But yeah, and you can't prohibit people on bicycles from sharing the road with cars and using 17th, but we could do a better job
Would
of
be a
encouraging
recommended
that
course of
alternate
action.
route,
Okay.
especially if you've got young kids or people that maybe aren't that comfortable riding their bikes in traffic. Jim, please.
But as you said, that's not gonna happen for next year, right? Because that's not in the budget to complete that trail from
Correct.
East Street and the property we own back down to the beach.
Correct. There are not
Okay.
currently resources proposed in the budget for
Thank
that.
you.
What we could, as we make this change, we could do, certainly maybe reevaluate the signs to effectively get people to realize they turn right and go past Harbor as a preferred method and safer method. We can improve that immediately.
It's not part of this motion, but I would mention we are working, staff anyway has proposed, including in the 2022 capital budget, resurfacing of, help me out, Jim, of Zlatnik.
Between the
That would be an improved street surface. I don't think there are any utilities that come into play in that stretch. Yeah, and that way, if say you took 17th Street to the beach or from the beach, you'd have improved pavement all the way up to Pierce, where our paving project 5 or 6 years ago ended. So,
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, see none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. On to E, which is a review of applications for council member vacancy. We need to return the completed rating matrices that were in our packet to city clerk for tabulation. So we need a motion first to do this, and then we can return those to our city clerk, I believe, and then we will take a short recess while she tabulates those. I believe, is that correct?
right. And I would point out the council 2 weeks ago agreed to this general methodology of using if there were more than 6 candidates, if there were 6 or more candidates, and happily there were 8 people interested in serving on council, that a matrix using criteria the council had identified would be used to narrow that field down to 4. After our city clerk, Jamie, tabulates the numerical results of those ratings, the motion and action, help me out, Jack, would still really be at the council's discretion. The council provided the direction that this was the method it wished to use, but you can't substitute ratings on a matrix for, at the end of the day, a formal vote of council giving direction as to the next step in the appointment. Getting that.
Have to reserve a certain amount of discretion with like the significant evaluations or tabulation. But, so much discretion on the part of a council in these circumstances that as long as the process is reasonable, it shouldn't be subject to any kind of legal challenge.
Jamie will report those results, and if council wishes to say, well, the top 4 candidates as rated in the matrix per our earlier direction are it, that the appropriate motion would be to affirm that. If the council, but again, it is entirely discretionary on the council's part. I would mention one thing, and council members may wish to speak to it. While it was identified that there would be points assigned if an individual added to the diversity of the makeup of the council, it was pointed out after the applications went out, we shouldn't and did not ask for people to identify issues such as gender, age, orientation, other things that might be considered as adding to the diversity of the council. So if the council, I don't know how council chose to rate that element of the matrix, but it would be at the council's discretion if you wanted to be counting that one at all, because we didn't ask people questions that would have really disclosed the diversity issue. I'll just serve that up because I heard, well, Tracy had contacted.
Do we need a motion to move forward with this? I do believe we do.
Okay, and then it would be a matter of
Right, so
discussion
we
and
need a
possible-
motion to identify the top 4 candidates to move forward in the interview phase for October 25th work session. So we'll take a motion and then we'll go into discussion and then we will vote. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Bill. I'm gonna second with that with Tracy because I heard her second. Now, any discussion? Go ahead, Tracy.
I called Greg on the rating on the diversity thing, only because that isn't a question you would normally ask anybody applying for a position, a job or whatever. And, based on any and all of these applications, I wouldn't know things like their age, their race, ethnicity, whether or not, they're disabled, whatever. And so I didn't think it was relevant, so I just put a slash through it. I didn't give it any number at all, for all of them.
I gave them all the same number. I thought I would be fair. They all got the same number in that box.
Worked the same way, didn't it?
Council would need to, I guess, amend the motion to use other than the criteria that are identified. And I don't know how you all chose to do that. If everybody got a 0 in that one, or everyone got a 1 or a 5.
I gave them all 1s, but now I just changed it quick to 0 because it shouldn't really be in there. But I gave them 1s for the same reason, not really knowing.
And I'm sorry, that one didn't register with us when we sent out the matrix.
Can we strike that completely?
That would
go to Bill and then to Tracy. If they
either a
want to
friendly
strike that.
amendment or a motion to amend.
Amend the motion to eliminate that part of the matrix.
Okay, so we're talking about the diversity one, which is pretty much 3 in our charts here. Okay, Tracy seconding that, perfect. Okay, so we are gonna strike that. We will not do the third one on this sheet, which is labeled as diversity. Jamie, you got that? Of course you do. All right, any other discussion? Darla, anything?
Oh, I totally agree with that. You can't tell from what was sent in.
Okay, just so everyone in the public knows, Darla, we do have Darla's sheet here, so she is voting. Her sheet is with us and will get tabulated by Jamie as well. All right, so then we're gonna do you wanna do a roll call right away or do you wanna do a roll call at the end, Jamie, once we approve? Okay, so we're gonna go to recess and we're gonna turn these into you. And then you're gonna tabulate and then we'll do a roll call on the
No,
vote.
I guess I would suggest, especially since council, did modify the methodology, that the fact that you're directing the clerk to report back on the tabulation of the matrix, your responses on the matrix, taking out the diversity factor. There should be a vote on that and then a recess. 10
Make a
minutes, I'd
motion.
suggest at least,
I'm-
and don't bug the clerk during the recess.
I
And
make a
then you
motion,
vote.
then Greg, to that point, let's take out the diversity point.
We did that.
And summarize that.
We did that.
and use that as basis to get our 4 top candidates to be interviewed.
Yeah,
Okay.
you already have that. The only question was, do you
Yes.
need to vote on it
That's
before the
right. Do we
recess?
need
Yep.
Please.
Okay,
Let's just do an all in favor.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's fine.
all in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. We're gonna go into a short recess and turn these into Jamie, and we'll be back shortly.
Could you kill the audio until?
Okay, so I passed out the score sheet. If you look at the third page in the yellow box, that is everybody ranked from highest to lowest scores. I also want to point out that I figured the numbers 2 ways because we had a rating scale of 1 to 5 and there were some zeros. So I converted the zeros to ones in those cases just to double check, and the result comes out exactly in the same order. So no changes there.
Hold on, Darla, just waiting for Jamie to finish. Is that it?
I can't hear her.
Oh, you can't hear her.
Okay,
Can you,
I can start over.
can you hear her now? Talk, Jamie.
Something.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Say, if I could, Mr. President, Darla,
That's much better.
Darla, if I was to either text or email the at least the summary table to you, are you in a position to view it?
Yeah, if you
I
could
can
just-
send it to her
If you
quick.
could just send it to me, that would be great.
It's an email? Okay, just thought that
Just a
might
minute.
help to see it in front of you.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, so do you need Jamie to say what she said just before because you didn't hear her? It was just a kind of a brief summary.
No,
can-
that's
okay.
if I didn't really miss anything then, right?
No, not really. I think she just said she was converting some of the zeros that people put and put ones there just to make sure it didn't influence, because technically it said rate them from 1 to 5, not 0. So some people had some zeros in there. And it didn't really affect the outcome much from what she tabulated. I think that's pretty much the gist of what she said there.
Correct. Changed some numbers, but it did not make a result on the ranking.
The top 4 individuals were unchanged.
The
either
top
way.
4 individuals were unchanged, so.
And just for the record, for folks out there, those top 4, based on the scoring in the matrix, are candidates Larry Thomas, Heather Ross, Gregory Conan, and Scott Steckmesser. By the way, we're presenting this in summary manner. The complete ratings tabulation is public record if anybody did want to see it, just so you're aware of that, Council.
Could somebody repeat the top 4 again?
Larry Thomas, are we allowed to do this? Yes, it's public. Larry Thomas, Heather Ross, Greg Conan, and Scott Steckmesser. That is in order as well, from high to lowest on the top 4. So we're not voting on who we're taking in at this point. We're voting on the top 4 we want to go on. Now, we do not have to go with the top 4 that are in this matrix. This is just kind of a summary for us to see where other council members are. That doesn't mean that these top 4 have to move on. You could take the lowest vote getter and put them back in the mix of things if you'd like. So we're just looking for, we need to identify the top 4 candidates to move on, so we can discuss that at our work session on October 25th.
Those 4 would be invited to make presentations to the council per your prior direction.
Should we reopen a motion or ask for a motion?
It would be appropriate there be a motion at this time, either to proceed with the top 4 per the council's prior guidance, if you will, or some alternative if somebody wishes to offer an alternative motion.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to identify the top 4 candidates. If it is what you see here on your sheet as given to us by Jamie, or if it's in an alternative, we are looking for that motion before we can discuss. Do I have a motion for something?
I'll make the motion to take the top rated or top scored 4 candidates on here and invite them to a presentation during our work session next week.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion, council? Anyone want to see anything different that the motion, that the first and the second can change? Or questions on how we did this or anything else? Not seeing any. Darla, do you have anything over the phone?
No.
Okay. Then we will do a roll call vote on this motion. Jamie?
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulanis,
Aye.
Adam Wahusky,
Aye.
Mark Bittner, Jeff Belkey.
Hey,
Okay, thank you very much. On to 12 for information only. Greg, do you want to do that?
This is kind of a repeat of what I said before, but I'll say it anyway. Personnel and Finance Committee, Wednesday evening, 6 PM, here on third floor, either in this room or the committee room across the way, to continue budget review. And we'll, like I said, be adding a closed session for update and discussion on expressions of interest in purchase of the city-owned Paragon, former Paragon property. Work session next week, Monday night. We'll start off with the council's interaction or hearing from those 4 top candidates you just interviewed. I'll also include on that agenda the matter relative to outstanding design issues with Central Park West. And I believe we should be in a position to also have an ordinance for discussion, at least an action at the November 1 meeting relative to telecommunication facilities in the right-of-way. That's something our electric utility is working on with the Boardman Law Firm, which is working with the different municipal electrics on that. And of course, your next regular city council meeting 2 weeks from tonight, November 1st. We would request the closed session for discussion of the items as listed. I don't anticipate any action by city council upon reconvening and open other than to adjourn for the night.
Thank you. All right.
I can't guarantee that. I hope so. Oh, Mr. Bittner wondered about any action on the Paragon building at the meeting next Monday. We are awaiting a complete proposal from one of the parties with interest. We received Friday a proposal from another party that I know there's some staff feedback, and I want to sit down with Attorney Bruce either in person or over the phone and discuss that along with our community development director. I hope so. I'm optimistic. We've got some solid interest. I can't guarantee it from where I sit right now. We all want to move that property and see it return to good use.
Okay. 13, closed session. The city council reserves the right to enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Tonight, discuss possible city assistance to economic development projects. Also discuss redevelopment of city-owned Paragon property. As Greg said, he doesn't expect any action for us to come back into open session and vote on any of those. So we will just reconvene in open session to simply adjourn. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Bill. I'll take that as a second from Jeff. Any discussion? See none, this is a roll call vote.
Darla Leclerc. Aye. Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulanis,
Aye.
Adam Wahusky,
Aye.
Mark Bittner, Jeff Belkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
All right, we'll shut the microphones off, and that would be it for tonight, and we'll take 3 minutes.